Hi everybody, welcome back to Hearing Rehab. I'm Sandra Ryerson, Doctor of Audiology and owner of Adaptive Audiology Solutions in Carroll and in Denison. And today I want to speak with you about different implantable solutions for hearing loss. Hearing aid technology is extremely impressive today, but hearing aids cannot cure all forms of hearing loss. Where hearing aids fail to meet the needs for certain patients, implantable solutions can provide options for patients. Cochlear implants and osseointegrated implants are remarkable devices that have transformed the way we approach hearing loss. And while many people think of a cochlear implant as a single type of technology, there are actually several different kinds of cochlear implants and other implants, and they're designed to meet specific hearing needs, lifestyles, and medical considerations. Today I'll explore the various types of implantable devices, how they work, and what makes each one unique in restoring the gift of sound. So for patients with severe to profound hearing loss, or those with less than 60% speech discrimination in their best condition, meaning wearing hearing aids, usually 2 hearing aids is the best condition. So if they have less than 60% speech understanding in that condition, cochlear implant technology is recommended. For those that struggle to understand speech with hearing aids, it is often because they have lost too many sensory cells in the cochlea or the inner ear. And therefore there isn't enough to stimulate to bring back the sound. Like I often say to patients, if you don't have any sensory cells in a certain region of the cochlea, we can't bring that hearing back for you to hear it. It's just not possible. So because there isn't enough to stimulate acoustically, we try to stimulate the nerve electrically. So a cochlear implant works by directly stimulating the auditory nerve by inserting an electrode into the cochlea. So I'll show you what that looks like. So here's the electrode. This goes under the skin, behind the ear, under the skin flap, and then this is what goes into the cochlea to stimulate the nerve electrically. And I should mention the other thing here, this is the ground electrode because we are using electricity to stimulate the auditory nerve now. So the system has 2 main parts, an external processor, okay. Oh, the ear hook just fell off. I've used this demo a lot, okay. So this is one particular looking processor made by Cochlear Americas. This sits on the skin, connecting with the internal processor, and then this sits behind the ear, okay? The other option through Cochlear Americas is an off-the-ear device that sits back here. There's positives and negatives to both styles. We won't get into that today, but these are the 2 options through Cochlear Americas. So basically, the external processor picks up the sound, converts it to digital signals, and then sends that through the coil to the internal implant, which then creates those digital signals into electrical pulses that stimulate the nerve electrically. So typically when there's sensory cells in the inner ear, they release a neurotransmitter when they're stimulated, and that sends the signal through the nerve to the brain. Now, instead of using chemical signals like we would in normal hearing, we're using electrical signals to stimulate the inner ear. The brain interprets these impulses as sound, allowing the patient to hear. This is a process, it's not an immediate solution. Patients who receive a cochlear implant have to go through a rehabilitation process to adjust to hearing differently. Sounds are going to sound different than they have in the past. This rehabilitative process can take 6 to 12 months and can require hearing therapy exercises and even sometimes classes or like audiologists or speech pathologists working with you one-on-one to teach you how to hear differently. So it's not one and done. It's not a simple process. It does take time. And not just anyone can receive a cochlear implant. As I mentioned earlier, there are hearing loss requirements and speech comprehension scores that are thresholds that must be met in order to qualify. And it's important to know that these speech comprehension scores, you have to wear hearing aids in order to qualify. So you have to be fit with appropriately fit hearing aids, tested in the booth, repeating back sentences and words, and those scores are what are going to qualify you for a cochlear implant. Because the whole purpose of the testing is to make sure, are we implanting someone who won't benefit from hearing aids? Because if someone is scoring a 80% speech comprehension and quiet, they are not going to qualify for a cochlear implant. We would do more harm than good, because you can't take the implant out if the patient doesn't like it. It's there to stay. We've put an electrode into the cochlea. We can't walk that back. So that's important to mention. And recently the FDA cleared approval for cochlear implants in treating single-sided deafness. It's important to note that in this situation, you really have to have a profound hearing loss or deaf ear, and then a completely normal hearing ear to qualify. And those kinds of, and we'll get into, which device would you use for single-sided deafness. That's a bit in depth, and that would require talking about lifestyle and expectations with the patient. So we won't get into that today, but that is a new way to treat single-sided deafness, is a cochlear implant. Another category of implant is known as an osseo-integrated implant, and included in this category is the BAHA, or the bone-anchored hearing aid, okay? And then the Ossia, which I don't have a model of the Ossia, but it's essentially looks a lot like this, which is the cochlear implant processor. It's very similar in shape. It's a bit thinner than this, but very, very similar looking. These devices are approved for people who have single-sided deafness, as well as mixed hearing loss or conductive hearing loss. So for single-sided deafness, it's important to note that while a CI, you have to have a completely deaf ear, but for a BAHA or an Ossia, you don't have to have a profound loss in the bad ear, but the good ear needs to have normal hearing. These devices are also excellent for people, or I should mention, the inner ear has to have normal hearing, okay? The devices are also excellent for people with, say, conductive losses, where the hearing loss is caused in the middle ear. So an example of a conductive loss would be someone who suffers from chronic ear infections. They have good inner ear hearing, but the middle ear is just constantly, filled with fluid, issues with causing them to not be able to wear hearing aids. That's when they can wear a BAHA, okay? Bone anchor hearing aids in the Ossia work the same way. A titanium implant is placed in the bone behind the ear. Eventually the bone grows around the implant, hence the term osseo-integrated. The implant transfers the sound vibration through the bone directly to the cochlea, bypassing the middle ear and the outer ear. So we're stimulating the inner ear directly. And that's why we have to have a normal hearing ear to do that. The internal implant has an abutment for the BAHA to attach onto, so this actually snaps onto a little abutment back here. All right, and then Ossia is held by magnet. So a lot of surgeons are moving into the Ossia because an abutment just requires more upkeep and care, whereas having just the skin completely closed up and the magnet underneath is just long-term, we feel, a better solution for a lot of patients. And that's how the external sound processor, it picks up the sound, converts it to vibrations, and vibrates the skull and stimulating the inner ear directly. So this allows people with conductive or mixed losses or single-sided deafness to hear more clearly without relying on the normal pathway for sound coming through the ear canal and through the middle ear. We're just going to stimulate the inner ear directly because we can access normal hearing from either one side or both sides of the ear. Okay. And the processor can be attached 2 to 4 weeks following implantation, and typically only requires one fitting appointment. It is a very much more straightforward process compared to a cochlear implant because you're working with a normal hearing ear. You're working with an inner ear that has healthy hearing. It just needs to be accessed. So there are many exciting developments in cochlear and osseo-integrated technology. 2 manufacturers make osseo-integrated implants, Cochlear Americas and Med-El. And there are 3 companies that manufacture cochlear implants, Cochlear Americas, Med-El, and Advanced Bionics. And because I'm in a very rural area that doesn't have a large population, I only work with Cochlear Americas. Cochlear Americas does have a very robust program for rural clinics. And so they provide fantastic support. They know that It's hard for people who are considering these types of implants to get them knowing they have to travel 2 to 3 hours to get their care. So they feel that by working with rural clinics and audiologists in rural areas, they can help more people. And I found that to be absolutely the case. So I work with Cochlear Americas. There are other companies out there, like I mentioned. So for cochlear implants, I'm gonna make sure I said that, Cochlear Americas, Advanced Bionics, and Med-El. And two of the companies that make cochlear implants are owned by a parent company that also owns a hearing aid manufacturer. So that's really beneficial because for Cochlear Americas and Advanced Bionics, if you have one of those implants, you can have a hearing aid on your good ear that can integrate with all of these other solutions. They can work together. They can integrate for your phone use to stream phone calls and things and sound from your phone. You can stream from your TV to both devices, remote microphone. So it has a lot of cool implications for that, and is very impactful for patients when you can have the same accessories for both your cochlear implant and your hearing aid. So if you're frustrated with your performance with hearing aids, I highly recommend that you schedule a cochlear implant candidacy evaluation with a clinic that has a cochlear implant program. Patients always get so nervous when I start to bring this up to them, and I just always want to explain that you are not agreeing to get a cochlear implant by doing this candidacy. You're just looking into your options. You're seeing, am I even a candidate? And then you're in the driver's seat. It's up to you to decide what do you want to do from there. But it's good to know, are you a candidate, or should you consider new technology in hearing aids? So that would be my encouragement to you. If you know someone that really struggles to understand speech with their hearing aids and they've been told they're fit correctly, I would encourage them to pursue this. I've seen patients come in that are just fit inappropriately with hearing aids, and they need to take a new approach with their hearing aid technology because they aren't fit correctly or they're underfit. But then I've also seen many patients who absolutely are candidates. Some choose to go forward with it. Some choose to just continue to monitor. They're not ready at that time. Either way, that's fine. I just think it's really important to know your options. So anyway, that's what I want to encourage you to consider. And if you'd like any more information on these technologies, I would recommend that you go to the manufacturer's websites. That's probably the best way to really get an understanding of how these implants work, and I will link those below. So thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.